Welcome back to Dum-Dums and Dragons, where improvisers who've never roleplayed before journey into the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I am the Grand Wizard Bukake, your host. Our heroes have defeated the One of Many Faces, freeing Yevgenovich and Bucky from his clutches, and Quinny and Reginald from their oaths to Baba Yaga. Juniper and Wild West Moss have combined forces and bodies, finally having discovered the way to stop the Great Collide. Lastly, Butthole has returned to Dumb Faerun and been named Butthammer, Moonhammer's avatar to this dimension. What will happen now that our heroes have been banned from heaven and hell? Find out next on Dum-Dums and Dragons.
After a series of adventures, the Dum-Dums have finally returned all together to a very changed Dumb Faerun. Welcome to Season 6 of Dum-Dums and Dragons. I am, of course, your host and DM, Tom McGee. And to kick things off this season, we're just going to check in with our characters a bit and kind of reintroduce them to you in the world. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. If you've been with us through the whole ride, welcome back. Our heroes have just finished wrapping up some pretty big business. Quinny, Brown Barrow, our resident thief and warlock, has finally defeated his nemesis patron, the One of Many Faces, and is finally free from the infernal contract that has haunted him for so long. In doing so, he freed his young companion, Bucky, who had taken the contract as well in the hopes of saving his friends. Finally, with both Quinny and Bucky out from under the influence of the ever-present One of Many Faces, they enter a world with a new degree of freedom, one they previously had not enjoyed for some time. With them, of course, is their stalwart companion, Juniper, who has merged with a version of herself from an alternate timeline. Together, they have the shared experiences, shared skills, and a lot of new and exciting combat abilities as they face a world still in crisis, but a crisis that for the first time in Juniper's quest is finally under control. Juniper seeks to prevent the Great Collide, all of the dimensions of the multiverse colliding into one, causing rife destruction until one kind of messy tangle survives and or the entire universe implodes. We're still uncertain, but for now, it has been slowed. Also with them is their previously dead companion, Butthole Farch, aka Bobbert Tingler, aka the rightful king of Akka, aka now the avatar of the goddess Moonhammer. Butthole, recently thought dead, has finally returned to the land of the living to find a new companion, an alternate universe version of his brother, the once evil, now cowardly Reginald Tingler, who himself has been on a journey of discovering heroism and figuring out how he can survive in a world that seems to only want to kill him. Together, our heroes have emerged from hell, now being banned from the underworld altogether.
I forgot about that.
And no longer having their patron god, Moonhammer, to watch out for them as she has returned to her own dimension. So it is into this world that the Dum-Dums step, a world run by the dead. The dead have risen, hell is empty, and the nation of Akka, a warlike nation that worshipped at one point the god of war, has now become the empire of Akka. They have stretched their talons across the entirety of Dumb Faerun, taking the continent by force with an army of the dead, led by the evil Lich King Grayson Typhus and his queen, Emily Typhus, Butthole's mother. The empire of Akka has seized control and now reigns supreme, with only one threat remaining to them. The Planteers, a family of incredibly powerful mages and their armies who have retreated beyond the borders of Faerun back to their kingdom in the sky, where they lick their wounds with their patron god, Captain Planteer, who is wounded both in ego and form by the Dum-Dums at the end of their previous adventure. Having emerged from the gates of hell itself back into this world, the Dum-Dums found their caravan abandoned, their friends lost, but a helpful mole that they had inserted into the nation of Akka some time ago, Stephen, who has informed them that the newfound necromantic powers of the Empire of Akka have been put to full use. And so the Dum-Dums have set out to put the world back together, one little piece at a time. So we begin our adventure today with all of you on the road. You've managed to mend the carts. However, the whereabouts of your friends and companions are still unknown to you. You've returned from hell a day or so before and have managed to rest up and sort of regain your hit points, of course, as well as getting a chance to actually catch your breath. All of you have gone up 2 levels very dramatically for a variety of reasons, mostly big adventures, but also various boons from your patrons here and there. So all of you are feeling kind of charged up and ready to face this new horrible world. That said, there is a lot that I think is probably on your characters' minds, and I just want to check in with each of them and each of you to see kind of where they're at as we continue down the path. Currently, we are heading up an incline along a wooded path with sort of small snowbanks to the left and right of you. Winter has come to Dumb Faerun. And you find yourselves somewhat underdressed for the weather as light snowflakes drift down through the trees on a brisk, cool wind. Not so much so that you're freezing, but enough that you're certainly aware of it. The caravan currently consists of Butthole and Reginald, both played by Ryan, Quinny and Bucky, both played by Tyler, and of course the multi-person Juniper, the shapeshifter, played by Laura. You also have with you Stephen, your erstwhile companion, as well as the spirit of Yevgenovich, an old friend turned nemesis turned friend once again, who you brought with you out of hell. As you stepped through the gates of hell, his spirit began to waver, and Butthole, you had to very quickly choose an item for him to reside in until you could find him a proper body. Ryan, what did you force Yevgenovich into at that critical moment?
All right, looking at the options of what I have, Yevgenovich is now inside an overly tall top hat with a veil.
Amazing. All right, so
Awesome.
We've got Yevgenovich in a top hat with a veil. Wonderful. So I'm imagining, for visual sake, we'll say this is a bit like a Mario Odyssey hat. So it's just got like, it's a hat with like sort of glowing spiritual eyes floating on it.
Ooh, the eyes can be in the veil. So
hold it up.
It's got a little veil with eyes in it.
Yeah, there's little red eyes floating behind the veil.
Awesome.
Wonderful. So let's just go around and check in with each of the characters, having come out of this grand adventure in hell. See where you're at, and also for those joining us for the very first time, if you just briefly give us a quick description of what your character looks like these days. I think we've kind of done this piecemeal a bunch of different times, but it might be nice to have a little reminder as we walk down this road, and then we'll get into a lot of the what questions you've answered for each other, what conversations you've had, all that sort of jazz. But just for the moment, what are each of your characters doing as they walk this cold road?
I think Quinny has kind of pulled his hood up over his head, and he's kind of got his arms crossed to kind of maintain a bit of warmth. I think he still keeps his coat of farch jacket open because he's just cool that way. Like it would be warmer if he closed it, but he wears it open. So he's a little halfling. He's still got his eye patch over his right eye, and a scar down the middle of his face, one that he shares with Butthole. He basically wears like leather armor that basically gives him the freedom of motion needed to do his thiefy, agile things. Underneath his eye patch, he actually has a fake eye. It is the Eye of True Sight. That he can tap into when he needs. Other than that, he's basically wearing all black. He's got a long coat that he wears, which, comparatively to the rest of you is not that long, but it's long on him. It is actually tailored from the hide of a dragon, but it wasn't a regular. It was like a mind flayer dragon. I can't remember what they're called.
Illithid dragon.
Yeah. So it's black It's black all outside, and then there's like this weird kind of like pinkish purple trim with like these bumps that you would almost see like on the underside of like an octopus's tentacle. And he's trudging along, probably not really speaking to anyone, unless being spoken to. I think he's thinking about stuff.
Gotcha. And what's Bucky? What's Bucky doing?
Oh, Bucky won't shut the fuck up. Bucky's talking to everybody. He's got to catch up with so many people. He's so happy to see everyone. Everybody looks so different. He's a teenage dragonborn. Well, we're a couple years on now, so maybe he's more like 17 or 18. Mm-hmm. But still, just that ever so like that youthful naivete. I don't know if that's ever going to leave him. He wears he has blue scales and a little crown of dragon horns that kind of come out the back of his head, and his face comes forward in a snout. He's not dressed for the weather very much at all, in that he does not have boots or anything like that. He just has his dragon legs that he's walking on, and he wears a blue robe with sort of like yellow / kind of gold trim, like a mage's robe, really. And he wears leather fingerless gloves. That is actually his arcane focus. So a lot of his spells, they come kind of shooting out of his fingers a lot, because that's how he channels them. And he's got and he's talking to anyone. He's talking at people if they're like, no one wants to have a conversation with him. He's got stories to share. He wants to hear what everyone else has been up to. He's so happy to see everybody.
Right. Ryan, what is Butthole doing, or how is Butthole dealing with the cold?
So Butthole, luckily, he still has his vestments of House Farch as well, because he took those off before he committed valiant, heroic oopsie daisies and got himself killed and then sucked into another dimension. But he's got that. So he is standing. He's wearing his armor of Sunscythe. So it is kind of like gold plate mail. It's thinner than like the big chunky stuff you'd expect to see on knights. Like I would say, if you average out like a World of Warcraft character with the gold armor that Aquaman wears in the most recent Aquaman movie with Jason Momoa, it's kind of in the mid-range of that, with symbols of scythes kind of all over it. So that's kind of like, neck down all the way out to gloves and boots is that. He's wearing his vestments over it, so they go together, because there's like some black and some purple and some pink kind of thing stretched over it. His head, I mean, Butthole he's like 6'4", and I used to say he weighed like 240, but I weigh like 240, and this motherfucker's bigger than me. So he probably weighs like 280, 300 pounds, realistically. He's been described by people as having big gay dad energy, and I think that is the perfect description of his personality. He is totally bald. He's got a bushy red beard that's probably running down to like kind of the bottom of his neck. It's not so big that you could like get a hand in it like yank, but it's present. He has tattoos on his like chest and arms and stuff, but you can't see them because this guy has been hit with so much fire over the form of his career that he is just a walking set of burn scars that still somehow seems kind of jovial through them. And he's got a big scar over his face that kind of matches Quinny, blue eyes. He's got his he's so happy to have his tummy bag back. So over the gut of his armor, because it's kind of form fitted to a guy with a beer gut who's also very strong. He's got his bag
you
of
called
holding.
it your tummy bag.
Yeah, the tummy bag. It's his bag of holding that he jams under the stomach of his armor.
Yeah, a little tummy bag.
Yeah.
And he's got his big. He's got like, oh man, I've had so many hammer Moonlight Bringer. That's the name. I have so many hammer themed weapons. It's kind of like carried in one hand over his shoulder. It's a giant war hammer at the end. It's got the big kind of double hammer heads. None of that spike on the back crap. That's not a hammer. That's a spike. So he carries that. It's clearly enchanted. He's got a big kind of round shield with Tyrannosaurus teeth hammered into the edges that are stabbing out. It's looking a little more like black and spooky because that was back from his days as a professional god murderer / celebrity, the Forsaken. So he's kind of trudging along. I think he's had a lot of moments to think since they've arrived. He's deeply bothered that no one knows where Goblin Jr. is. So that's fucking haunting him and the rest of his people. Plus, he's got to take over an empire, and he's back. So now he's got to be king again, not Quinny. There's a lot of math. So I think he's leading in his head towards like nailing down what his plans are. He probably hasn't announced them yet, but I think, and then Reginald's just over his shoulder. Reginald would be like, I want to be just behind the guy who can bring people back from the dead. So Reginald is Butthole's brother. He's a little younger. He's a little thinner. He's a little skeezier. Like if you were to take, Butthole and then have a makeup art, like have him thin down and have a makeup artist go, this guy's going to play a guy on meth, then you might just get a little bit of Reginald. There's still a little bit of nobility to Reginald, but he's just got a little bit of cravenness about him. He's in traditional kind of like warrior for the god of war hero outfit. So it's a little bit villainous. It's big kind of silver plate mail with like red kind of fabric woven in and a cape. Oh God, what's his weapon now? Oh yeah, he's got it's got everybody's broken things. It's been big twists. He's got bright gold gloves of the dragon, and he's carrying like a two-handed warhammer that the head of which is on fire. Which I think he's rigged up a way to be able to wear it on his back, so it like pokes out the side about 3 feet away from him, so it like lights his path in front, but doesn't risk setting him on fire. He's also bald, and he's got a similar beard. You could mistake one for the other if you didn't know them very well, but if you're in the same room, you're like, oh, not the same guy.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And Juniper, you are wheeling along beside them. What's going through Juniper's head right now?
I think Juniper is so grateful to be alive. It was I mean, she kind of had a moment of like, I would say triumph / hopelessness was kind of going through her head as she was like, haha, Xanthus, I got your eye. Oh shit, I'm dead. And so I think she's probably spending a lot of time talking with Bucky, just because like another Bucky killed her pretty violently. So I think she's talking to him. I mean, there's probably part of her that is like wondering, it's like, hey, this Bucky's not going to turn out to be evil too, right? And just like kind of aware that like she should probably just keep somewhat of an eye on him. But also to kind of process her own trauma, I think is just like, okay, I kind of need to kind of get back on the horse with Bucky. And like, I'm just going to talk to him a bunch and it's going to be great. So, and it's also, I think it's been really cool merging with the Old West Moss. That's just kind of been interesting. So I think she's also spending a lot of time just kind of talking to herself, really, and kind of processing, like, I think they're both kind of processing like kind of the new memories and new experiences that they're having together. Because Juniper wasn't really a leader. She was very much kind of doing her own thing and like gathering, right, like following people who could help her, deal with the Great Collide. But having kind of Old West Moss who really took to like protecting the people of her town and everything, and feeling very responsible for them in a kind of an official capacity. I think Juniper's kind of enjoying that feeling and kind of like, oh, there's a lot to learn. I can gain a lot from this. I think that's probably all that's going through her head. So Juniper looks very much like the Juniper we know from Dumb Faerun. So she's kind of shorter in stature, very like athletic build. Looks like a human. Juniper is the primary persona, for those who don't know, of Moss, who is a changeling. So Juniper looks like a human, has very like she's kind of like perpetually kind of like sunburn tanned, kind of, just because she's like out a lot. has kind of like chestnut hair, always very messy. She wears plate mail. So, I mean, she lost her armor of Blingenstone, right? So I imagine she's gone to get more plate because, I mean, being a paladin, she can't be without armor.
Yeah, we'll say for now that you're wearing, because when you merged with Old West Moss, you kind of inherited her body. So she was wearing like Old West stuff.
Yeah.
So I think from the caravan that you've mended, there's some of Leanne Lion Shield's provisions were still on board the caravan. I'd say for now it isn't quite up to snuff with what you'd like. You can almost think of it as like Mad Max or Fallout style armor right now, where it's like you've kind of strapped a bunch of different pieces,
very cobbled together.
Yeah, for sure. Once you get to a town or somewhere where you can buy stuff, plate mail is fairly, like, that would be an easy enough thing for you to find. Yeah. It's just right now, we'll say mechanically you still have the benefit of it, but right now just it's much more ramshackle than you used to. That said, Juniper tends not to be fussed by such things. And I think we can say that part of the reason your armor class, like your AC, isn't affected is because you're in a combat wheelchair now. Yes. It also has its own sort of plate on it and such, like it's reinforced. So I think in a way that is also providing you some benefit in terms of defensive maneuvers. So as a result, you're kind of like it evens out to be about what your plate mail was, and then once you're actually somewhere, you can probably load back up. It's just hard in the woods.
Cool. Yeah, that's fair. So like Tom said, Juniper's now in the combat wheelchair that Old West Moss had. So she's just fucking rocking out. It's basically like kind of like a reinforced, beefed up, like kind of metal and wood wheelchair.
Yeah, excellent. Nice. So along with the top hat, which is just being a top hat, you're making your way through the woods. I'm going to say that on the first night, everyone was just kind of bagged. Like there wasn't a lot of talking.
Bucky was talking.
Bucky was talking. But for the rest of you, I think it was just like we made it out of hell. We defeated Captain Planteer, killed the one of many faces. Like, let's live first and then talk later. But now, of course, you've had a bit of a chance to kind of talk things through. Now, that said, it has only been a day, and part of that day was just pure exhaustion and survival stuff and binding your wounds and everything else. I'd be curious what kind of the major conversations would be. Now, we know from Laura what you just described that Juniper would be chatting with Bucky a bunch to try and reestablish non-murderous Bucarius, the demon monster who killed you in a previous capacity. So we know that's going on. I'm curious kind of what other major conversations we think are happening. Quinny, you're obviously waiting for a sign from Baba Yaga, having completed her contract to defeat the one of many faces, her prodigal son. And it won't be long before she reaches out. So I don't think Quinny is worried about, I have to figure out a way to contact Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga always finds a way to contact you. So instead, it's more waiting for the fucking mysterious sigil than it is like anything else.
Quinny would definitely have some very pointed questions. Again, I said he's not really up for conversation, so he would want this information, and that would basically be it. He's not really much of a "hey, how's it going" kind of mood right now, but he's definitely needs some answers.
Cool. From who?
He would want to ask what happened to Juniper. He heard she was dead, and then he basically jumped into a portal into hell. After one night of binge drinking and sorrow, being like, Juniper, how, why, where, when? All of those kinds of questions. So he would definitely want to ask her about that. He would also want to know from Stephen if he could come up with the date that he and Reginald jumped into that portal to venture into hell, and tell that to Stephen and find out how much time has passed since they went to, is this this empire taking over the land, is this a decade in the making? Did this happen overnight? What happened there?
It's been about 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah. From what Stephen describes, so you were aware before you jumped in that Akka had kind of turned to necromancy with the sort of undead army that was besieging the orc castle where you got Kron. where you broke him out of the dungeon. We, from our epilogues, know also, if you're new to the show and or a longtime listener who's never listened to the end of an episode, keep it out for those epilogues, because man, lots of plot lives in those secret endings.
Yep.
Because I'm just a Marvel Cinematic Universe director, I guess, at heart. But as we learned from those, Emily, formerly Lady Antebellum, now Typhus, was resurrected as a lich as well by Typhus. So basically, you've now got two liches running things, and as you determined just at the very tail end of your adventure in Hell, the reason Hell was empty was that Typhus had struck a deal with Manny, and as a result, had access to a massive force that basically, essentially, like teleported into Faerun. Out of kind of a variety of hellmouths. So it only took 3 months. As you'll recall, the land was already fairly weakened from the long-standing war with Akka. Things had kind of settled a little bit. The war itself seemed over, and Akka seemed kind of essentially to be not defeated, but at least quarantined back within their own borders. However, a suddenly appearing army of the damned, Aragorn style, proves to be a bit of an issue. So when the dead rose, suddenly they were everywhere. They didn't need to march; they just were. So the takeover was rather fast and rather furious. Also, with the Planteers being weakened by their efforts against you, and also their like biggest weapon, Captain Planteer, being obsessed with finding his former bride Moonhammer, there was no one to stand in their way. Each of the nations has their own army, and certainly Greywater put up a fight, but ultimately this happened. It was essentially a bit of a rollover situation where just like Army of the Dead rolled through. What Stephen is able to tell you is this isn't a Walking Dead situation where like the world is just mindless zombies eating everyone. The dead are controlled. So essentially you can think of them more as an occupying force in cities, at least. Out in the wilds, they're kind of left to their own devices, and that's where you get full on like brains, om nom nom. But within the city centers themselves, they patrol the streets, they essentially police the various nations. So it's not like, the world has been wiped out. It's just that the world is now occupied by an army of undead monsters under the firm control of Grayson Typhus, the Lich King.
I think with that information, the conversation with Juniper still definitely needs to happen. But if we are marching, I think then Quinny is more taking up a vanguard position. He is stealthing out ahead of the party, because it sounds like we're in the heart of enemy territory. There could be enemy anywhere. So he's not just kind of marching along. He's in stealth mode, trying to basically scout ahead.
For sure, that makes sense. Yeah, the vibe you're getting is that with this Army of the Damned in the Land of the Dead, they've managed to just pin down all of the major like cities, towns. Like everyone is kind of under martial law, except that rather than the army, it's fucking zombies. So the way they're controlling that is by absolutely just turning like any kind of wilderness area into a no man's land, which is very unfortunate for everyone who lives in those areas, because it means they are facing uncontrolled zombie hordes. But within the city centers, towns, that sort of thing, they are controlled, and it's more like Nazi occupied France, where it's like there's strict rules, strict regulations, but instead of Nazis, you've got zombies.
So that does change what Quinny does. Bucky, however, still will not shut the fuck up unless somebody shuts him up.
You also admittedly haven't seen a zombie yet. And Stephen, who, as you'll recall, was kind of like hunkered down with the ruined caravan, hasn't seen one in some time. He also, in his flight from Akka, got very, very good at dodging the zombie hordes. Much like in, say, a series like The Walking Dead, where like a single person actually stands a tremendously good chance of being able to sneak through, because it's just like you can pick your moments and blah, blah, blah. He's been able to make good thing. That said, now that you are moving as a caravan, a little harder. Cool. So Juniper, how much would you tell Quinny? Would you tell him everything? Would you tell him a sanitized version? What do you think?
I tell him everything. How I went to Candlekeep, and I was directed to a planeswalker, Sylvia, I think her name was. How I found out that like I'm not the chosen one, but I was like chosen by my people as like the person most likely to like stop or fix the Great Collide, which is even more terrifying because it's like, oh, I don't have any special abilities, really. Like I'm not going to Neo this one, you know. I'm not going to fly away. So yeah, and then I'll I don't know how much this we need to like role play, but like, you know, that I was going to search for Avalon Riker. Xanthus had his head.
Okay.
I took Xanthus's eye, and Vicarious killed me, took my heart. So
I'm going to say that I think in terms of the role play, what I'd like to see is kind of the reaction more than anything to this, and like we can have a follow up, and that's also true, Butthole. For you, if you,
I think if we imagine this is the would have been around the fire at the end of the day, kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
Yes, 100%.
Oh wow, okay, that's quite a journey. I mean, Bucky, did you meet like a roided up version of yourself somewhere?
I don't think so. I haven't seen him or met him or anything, but I mean, you know, it's a big wide world out there. Who knows?
Bucky, can you roll me a history check for yourself?
17 on the die, plus, let me just bring him up here. History plus 2, 19.
So with that, I'm going to say you have access to this, but I'm not sure if you would actually use it or not. Tyler, how self-aware is Bucky about his own past and the possibility of having become this if things had gone differently? Do you think he'd be able to make that leap, or would it just seem so far outside that he wouldn't?
It's certainly something that he doesn't really like to have to face, but I also think his recollection of that is entirely like a first person account. You know what I mean? Like it's the events that were close to him that he remembers. Doesn't necessarily remember like the societal structure.
Right. Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
So I think he would answer it ambiguously, just being like,
yep. Big
maybe.
wide world. Yeah. Cool. Gotcha. Great.
It could happen.
Cool. So we'll say like you are aware of your personal circumstance, but not necessarily making that immediate leap to like, oh, if I'd zigged instead of zagged.
Could have been me. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
And Juniper would point out, it's like, I think we really should be careful. Like this Vicarious like person is like consuming other Buckies. Just like Xanthus.
Juniper, can you roll me a wisdom check, please?
Sure.
Say a wisdom save.
Wisdom save?
Yeah. Or an intelligence save. Either's fine.
22.
Ooh. You actually don't have any proof of that. Xanthus has been consuming other people.
Yeah.
But nowhere.
I thought Bucky had told me that. Okay, maybe not.
He said he killed a bunch of changelings. But no, Bucky has not been consuming other Buckies.
Well, then that's just, there we go. I make assumptions.
No, it's all good. It's all good. That's why
I say about assumptions is that it's going to make an ass out of someone, and I think it's me. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. We're all here. So this is a pretty fucking crazy time. I think we can all agree. I mean, nobody thinks this is normal, right? Whole world's gone bad. We just came back from hell for the second time.
Nope.
Kind of fucked up.
Not what I was expecting to come back to.
I mean, it was only the first time for me, but okay.
So on the bright side, my mom is still alive, so she can be rescued. Maybe she's a good person despite the whole lich thing. But she marries scumbags, and this Grayson Typhus guy has got to get fucking murdered. Like, I just want to stomp him into the ground, but he's a lich, which means his head's in a jar or something, and we have to break the jar to kill him, right?
Yeah. In my research into, things like breaking infernal contracts and things like that, there's, I don't really know how it works exactly. There's a thing called a phylactery. And it's important to a lich. That's all I know. I don't know if it's like the source of their power or what, but they usually only have one. And I don't know. Every lich has one, so I think it's important to them.
Yeah,
Tyler,
wasn't Alan trying to get that phylactery?
Yeah, she was. I mean, obviously, she's got other stuff going on now.
Tyler, I will say, based on your research around trying to get Alan back and looting her lab, her library rather, aboard the McSquiggly, you're fairly confident in this. Alan had a much clearer idea of the phylactery when it came to the stack and that kind of adventure, but you're fairly certain that's how this breaks down.
Yeah.
Okay, so we basically got to find this phylactery, but we probably need to find my mom's too, because I need to keep that one safe. But we need to find those, and then we need to stop.
Before we get too deep into a game plan, I need you to acknowledge the possibility that your mom is not, that she's beyond saving. That she's not the good person that we all hope she is. She might have to. She might have to die.
Tyler, can you roll me a deception check? I think Butthole's going to have his own reaction to this either way, but I want to know how convincing it seemed.
Deception? All right. I was trying to speak honestly.
This good person we all know she is. I don't think you've ever thought that Emily is a good person.
I said we all hope she is.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you hoped.
I hope because I got to deal with her son. That's why I hope it.
All right, fair enough. You know what? I'll give you advantage then. You're convincing
He
yourself.
does not need it with his bonuses to deception.
That's a 22.
Cool. Yep. All right. So it's convincing enough. Butthole, you can respond however you want. I also just want to say, for clarity's sake,
I'm not trying to twist your arm here with this deception check. React to it however you want. But
as with Bucky, we're going to assume, Ryan, like, your primary character is Butthole now that he's back. So unless we're sort of specifying Reginald's involved, Reginald will be nearby, probably paying attention. We might say that this particular conversation happens while he's on watch, just because someone would have to be looking out for it.
I think, or he might be standing 5 feet away, but you got to throw to him, kind of thing. I'm with
exactly.
you.
Yeah. So Ryan will either, I'll throw to Reginald, or Ryan, you'll let me know, like, Reginald sidles up and says blah 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 blah. But given that both of their voices are very similar, I just wanted to clarify that out of the gate so that no one's like, who is it though? I want to know.
Yeah, this is all Butthole right now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do you know what? She may have done some stuff that's kind of bad. So there is a chance that she may have to be charged in the court of law and found guilty, and there are prices and punishments to be dealt out. And I agree with that.
I think Quinny's going to just have to take that as a win tonight, like around the campfire. First day back onto the mortal plane. Like, that's all right. We'll have to leave it at that.
And Juniper, you find yourself surprised to be agreeing with this more than I think you would have previously been, because this kind of seems like a problem to be stopped. But Sheriff Moss believes in law and order in a different way than sort of standard paladin law and order. She believes in, like, the way Sheriff Quinny taught her to believe in it back in oh Jesus, what was the name of the town?
Tomb Slab?
Tomb Slab, thank you. Yes, where dreams go to die. Which was a
shithole
sign
town, right?
we never got to, but the sign outside Tomb Slab said where dreams go to fly, but someone had crossed it out and written die. I was really proud of it and I forgot to mention it, so I'm mentioning it now. Yes. So yeah, in Tomb Slab, like, court of law, important. Now, granted, that would usually lead to a hanging, but the court was still there. So I think it's one of those things where just, like, you're kind of like, yes. And then you kind of catch yourself and realize, like, oh, right, someone else lives in here and has feelings and opinions.
Yeah, because I like Juniper's like a lawful good. Moss is like a lawful neutral. Like, she is. Yeah.
Okay, so it seems like our goals are, we need to free the world from a necromantic horde. We need to get back our friends who clearly should be here in this caravan because they're members of House Farch, which actually might make them number one priority, but I'm not really sure. There's a lot going on. We need to kill Grayson Typhus and arrest my mom, pending trial. And we need to stop Xanthus from destroying the universe. So I think step one is for me to officially say, House Farch is declaring war on the Land of Akka. So just, I declare war!
Keep it down, man. Keep it down. We're in the middle of enemy territory.
Reginald ears perk up at this because going to war is the last thing Reginald wants any day, but he does want what's in the vault in Akka. So I think he comes over to put in his 2 cents. Also, probably doing the like Ross Geller from Friends, like keep it down, double thumbs up to back Quinny, his surprise best buddies play. Because don't yell. Things hurt you when you yell.
So Reginald kind of walks up and is like, all right, so I hear we're declaring war. I was wondering, have you considered who's going to be your general? Perhaps someone to lead from the back. Stay away from combat, make sure other people make smart decisions on the front. Well, says Butthole.
Thank you.
I've been thinking about that, and I'm pretty sure that I should be the general, but the one thing I know about you is that you're sneaky and you spend a lot of time with bad people and you don't like to be in the front of the fight, but you're crafty. So I'm thinking we need to make you House Farch's spy master. And Reginald's like, whoa, that seems... I mean, you want me to hide somewhere and just get information and tell you what other people are going to do, but also hide? I mean, I'm meant for war or whatever, but I'll take it. I think...
Steve-um, like, kind of like out of your line of sight, kind of puts up his hand as like actually, okay. And then he just kind of
I
like
think Quinny's beside him, just like puts a hand out like, no, shut up. This is perfect.
Okay. And then, cause you'll do that. I think Reginald is the Moneyball guy. He got the job he wanted and he doesn't want the description to become more specific. So he's already pieced out again. Like it's when you get your yes, hang up the phone. He just does that conversationally. So Butthole turned to Steve and be like, and you seem to know everything that's going on. So I'm thinking we might need to make you Reginald's assistant because you know what else is happening. Reginald is very good at being in charge in evil, and you seem to be an expert in sort of obsequious evil. So you can go with him and then figure that out. But we might have questions for you, so stay here. Okay, Juniper, you're my hand. That's important. So that's good. We don't need to change that. But Quinny, you're my court jester, and that feels vaguely inappropriate at a time of
it does it?
Who's dead is eating the living, and the world is a toilet. So I've been thinking about
jobs on how appropriate that is. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we might still need to use it for cover, but I've been thinking about it, and I want to instate something that existed in old laws of Akka, which is I want to name you the chief privateer of House Farch. I don't know if you know a lot about privateers, but basically in war, there were always like pirates and stuff, right?
Yep.
They just steal shit and take what they want. But that doesn't really help anybody. So what you can do during war is legalize privateers. So I give you a charter, and then he just yells, charter at him.
And again, the hands come like, keep it down.
So what that means is now you can rob anybody who's on the bad side. So anybody from Akka or anybody who's teamed up with Akka or the Planteers or whoever's being a dickhead. You have to give the nation of Akka, or in this case, House Farch, you have to give us half of but you can keep the other half, and it's all legal. You can rob anybody in the name of the war. So you can make money, and you can help fund the war, and you can be a criminal. And because you're the chief privateer, you can give charters to anybody you think could do the job well.
A single tear rolls down Quinny's cheek. And he just... it would be an honor to steal legally and keep a lot of stuff.
All right, so you could do that. But the only thing is, when you name your privateers, if they start robbing innocent people, then they're still guilty for those crimes. They just got to rob the bad dudes.
They're just guilty?
Yeah, you're not guilty for that.
Oh my God, it's perfect.
Just a small point of order here. Now you've quote unquote declared war.
Yeah.
Are we informally declaring it just to ourselves?
We're so small, it's not going to be recognized until we start killing monarchs.
Yeah, I mean, declaring war, doesn't that usually take an action? Like, don't we have to do something to declare war?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to write the letters tonight so that we can mail them out by birds. So
I was going to say nothing's going to happen if you just yell it.
No, I figured we'd do something creepy where it would be like Butthole's back from hell. I'm going to kill Grayson Typhus. This means war. Something cryptic that says like we're here, but we're cool.
Just
and then kind of send that out.
with a puckered circle stamped at the bottom or something,
I mean,
something.
you now also hold the additional title, in addition to rightful king of Akka, of the Buthammer, which is the title that Moonhammer gave you. Not an official, it's not like your name changed, but sort of the as the avatar of Moonhammer in this dimension. You've got a bunch of you're just building up your Daenerys Targaryen like fucking laundry list of like first of her name, breaker of chains, mother of dragons, the Butthammer, king of Akka. Weddings done cheap, all the things that Butthole can do.
The other bonus to the cryptic message is that my name takes a long time to write now because it's like Butthole Farch, former god slayer, rightful ruler of Akka, leader of House Farch, Butthammer, the avatar of Moonhammer to this world. Like, there's just a lot. We might have to come up with like an acronym, and then people can remember it, like Roy G. Biv or whatever. We'll get there. But okay, we got a hand.
He's like, who's Roy G. Biv?
That's it. Oh wow!
It doesn't need an answer. It's just Quinny being an idiot.
Oh, okay. Your chief privateer. So, Steve, you're here. I think the big question, because you seem to have the most context of any of us, is I don't know, where are our friends and what should we do now? Because right now we're just walking in a random direction.
I will say that you're kind of following the path that the caravan was on, which seems like a reasonable way to go. I think collectively what we can say has already kind of happened is the decision to kind of seek out your friends first and foremost. Obviously, you're worried about Goblin Jr., but there's like the whole party is fractured right now. So that's kind of priority number one. Also, just to get your bearings. You don't actually really know where you are. Stephen basically just says like, it would seem to me, Your Highness, that Akka has a stronghold and a fortress and a safe point. From what I've seen of my travels, there are no longer safe spaces in this world. The dead are everywhere. It's the problem with graveyards, I've always said since this began. So not always, but recently. So it would seem to me, Your Highness, that the first order of business perhaps should be to find somewhere safe, somewhere we could make safe, where we could have a place of strength. Akka has that, and until we have our own, they will continue. Now, I understand that being able to move and staying, nimble is useful. It's how I've survived. But if we're trying to rally others to our cause, there are many who would flock to an alternative banner if offered one, but they would need some assurance that they would be safe. So if I may offer my suggestion, it would be let us first find your friends, and then let's find somewhere where we can kind of dig in and start to build.
All right, I like that. So we find our friends, and then we go and start some kind of fortress or liberate a town that we're then in charge of. All right, so on my to-do list, I need to make more Bibles, because Quinny never got around to that, so the Moon Manments are available. I need to probably get a crown of some kind. I need to declare war on everybody. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good list. I don't know. Does anybody feel like we're missing anything?
Well, actually, I think Quinny's about to speak, and then Bucky will be like, "What's my job? What do I do, Mr. Butthole?" What?
Oh, interesting. Well, Alan became some kind of portal mistress or something. Was that what I was told?
That's what I heard, yeah. Okay,
congratulations. You're the court wizard. So you're in charge of magical defense and offense.
Wizard. And he like gets really excited and then thinks, but I'm not a wizard though, Mr. Butthole. I'm a sorcerer. Is that okay?
Yes, we're going to call you the court sorcerer. Oh my, wait. Did we even officially bring you into House Farch? Oh my God. And he just starts he pulls off his own vestments and he goes over to Bucky. He's like, "You're going to put this on. All right, here you go." And he like straps him in and he's like,
you get close to him and you put them around his shoulders and you hear him just like say, it's like, "It's happening."
He's like, "I, Butthole Farch.
I, Butthole Farch." Oh, no, this isn't one of, I'm sorry.
I, Butthole Farch, former god slayer, rightful ruler of Akka, blah, 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 blah. Okay, Roger Biff. Declare you a member of House Farch and the official court sorcerer of House Farch and the nation of Akka reborn. You can kneel if you want.
Both knees. He's down.
And then he's going to Butthole, realizing that this has actually become a moment, stands there, and you just hear one of those really high-pitched farts that just kind of goes on a little bit too long, and then a like spiritual hammer comes out of his butt and just comes up, and then reaches down and touches one of Bucky's shoulder in the night way, and then the other, and he says, "Rise, rise to a brighter tomorrow, because we're gonna kick some fucking ass together."
And Bucky like springs up, like his feet leave the ground. He like jumps up into the air, and he'll cast like prestidigitation, and like small fireworks and sparks come out of his hands.
Yay!
Like, yay! Thank you, Mr. Butthole.
Oh, it's good to have you back, buddy. You're the coolest.
So having inducted Bucky into House Farch, with the sound of fireworks, he throws some dog barks in there in honor of Goblin Jr. Wherever he may be.
Quinny's just trying to manage this whole thing, just like, guys, keep it the fuck down.
Yeah, weirdly, I assume, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Reginald would be doing the same. There seems to, like, now that he and Quinny are kind of like against their in spite of themselves on the same page, I feel like both of them would be trying to stop.
Yeah, I feel like Reginald actually, because they are on the same team but still have that kind of like buddy cop who bother each other way. Like, I think Reginald is just looking back to Quinny as though, why isn't Quinny shutting this up? So it's like Quinny's trying to talk to Butthole and Reginald's trying to talk to Quinny.
Right, love it.
Yeah.
I should also point out, Vex did not return with you. Unlike,
she's got family down there now.
She does, yeah, and she is. She's currently exploring the Devlington lineage, but with a promise to return and find you. But just wanted to point out where she is, because I'm like, here's where everyone is. Oh, and that one other person is not with you. So having done that, you're now on the road. So we now pick back up at the moment we first described, like Bucky just kind of yammering on. Juniper, I feel like through that conversation, you got a bit of kind of your Bucky chat, enough to kind of understand what's going on. So I think there's still that awkward, like, I know in my own experience, this is usually like, if I've done something that's really like pissed off Miles, once everything is fine, but I'm still not really sure if everything's fine, I'll just be like talking a mile a minute, like asking you a bunch of questions and being like unnecessarily like, oh, hey, so like, a thing you're interested in, huh? Tell me about that. Like, are we good? So I think it's that with Juniper and Bucky, but like Bucky just is such a fucking motor mouth that you can't actually get a sense of it. But it is comforting, at least, that he's, talking in his delightful, like, naive and hopeful way, rather than in like I am destroyer of worlds. Let me tell you about how I vivisected all of your friends and family back home.
Yeah.
Kind of way. It's nice. It's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
And so we're back on this wintry road. Can the three of you please, as your primary characters, roll me an investigation check or perception? You can take your pick.
Could it be insight for Butthole, who only ever thinks with what his feels?
No.
Nice.
Sorry, what was the ask? Investigation?
Investigation or perception.
Okay. Wow. 24 for Quinny.
I've got 15 perception.
Okay.
12 for Butthole.
12. Quinny and Juniper, you as the snow begins to kind of thicken a little bit, you notice some footsteps, and there seem to be two pairs of you got
footsteps, like I'm hearing them and they're close. Footprints, like there's trace. Okay, I was like, oh shit. Okay, sort out they're here.
Yeah. You see, you see footprints, and sort of two wheel tracks that seem to be kind of leading along the path in front of you. And as soon as you notice it, of course, you throw the hand up. The caravan slows. And as you listen, you think you hear kind of a sort of like the sounds of shouting in the distance, and what sounds like combat. What do you do?
I'll I'll turn back and I'll say, I'll tell the party, like, there's combat ahead. There's a fight. Come on, come up. And I will encourage everyone to kind of like collectively move up until we can see what's going on.
So the trees are getting denser. You can't quite see from where you are. You can hear it kind of echoing off the trees and sort of bouncing off them from a distance. As you kind of crouch and watch, I think Quinny with that roll specifically, you can see the flash of a sword at distance and hear sort of the sounds of a conflict. It's a little ways away through the trees. It's off the path. I think it's safe to say, again, our default, at least for now, is kind of going to be almost like a character select screen, where we determine who goes where. For the purposes of this adventure, it's going to be a Juniper, Quinny, Butthole adventure. In future adventures, where one of you, it's going to be a little bit like a lot of like party-based games where it's like, well, you have to take this person, but then everyone else can be whoever they want. In this particular instance, though, we're going to stay with the prime characters because each of you now has a prime character. Now that Alan is off being Portal Mistress of the Raven Gates, now that Butthole's back, now that Quinny is back, that's going to be our core team. And then you can swap in Reginald or Bucky as you see fit when there's the opportunity to do so. In this case, just assume the default is always the core characters. Yep.
Yeah. I think Butthole would order, Reginald to essentially stay and protect the caravan, and then probably quietly ask Bucky to stay and look after Reginald to make sure he doesn't run away.
Yeah, Bucky's not doing stealth stuff. Come on.
Yeah,
he's been talking nonstop for the last 3 months, I assume.
You got it, sir. You can count on the court sorcerer.
Oh, sorry, to be clear, you guys haven't been walking around for 3 months. It's been 3 months since they entered hell.
We did like 48 hours in hell, but it was 3 months out here.
It just felt like it because Bucky wouldn't shut the
Oh,
fuck
damn.
up.
No, if it was 3 months, we'd be having a much longer conversation.
No, that's the only chat we had for 3 months of silence.
Yeah, just once.
Well, the rest is just small talk.
Yeah, and then you're walking and cleaning.
It's a lot of like, do you think
and then
the
this one
clouds
other
look
time
back
in
at us?
hell, I saw a little like fire guy. He was pretty cool. He didn't want to talk much, but he was like a little fireball with legs.
I kind of like to imagine that Bucky's just telling stories from before hell, like just from things that like a lot of people were actually here for. Like, and then me and the Forsaken, well, we went and it's like, we know we.
And then the airship crashed, and it's like we were there, man.
There were gargoyles.
Yeah.
Like, we fucking know, man. I like that a lot. That's headcanon for me, but no, it's for you. It's been like part of a day, a night, and now it's like the second day since you left hell.
So
logically, that does make sense. Yes.
Good. Alpha team is like creeping towards fight, and Bravo team is back at the caravan. So they're doing their thing. All right. So we're not aware of anyone else fighting who's like not either anti-undead or undead, right?
I can't tell from here. If there's fighting with weapons, that seems like living folk, not zombies.
All right. Do you want to go hide somewhere and Juniper and I can make an entrance?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll climb up a tree over here and I'll try and get a little higher.
All right, go ahead and roll me a stealth check at disadvantage because you're climbing a cold tree.
Ooh, nat 20 on the one roll, but let's see. I think with a 10.
I was going to say, if it's anything other than a 1, I think you pass with flying colors.
So on a 10, it's a 25 stealth check.
Quinny, the accidental bard. All right, so yeah, you go up a tree like one of those, like anyone who's in kind of, I've seen these videos and it always blows my mind, but like anyone who spends a lot of time doing like kind of modern lumberjack practice where it's just like someone just being like, up we go, and you're like,
right,
whoop.
yeah.
Just like, whoop, whoop. And then Butthole and Juniper, you're just going to kind of like stroll and roll right in there.
I think, we'll creep forwards, but if there's no way to do it hidden way, then it's just bursting onto the scene.
You can stealth in. No one is looking for you. Combat is in mid play, like it's happening. So if you want to try and creep up, you absolutely can. We'll just need stealth checks from both of you.
I think Butthole's a strong and wrong guy. I think he's just going to burst onto the scene and try to be dynamic in whatever the response needs to be. Because if there are skeletons, then fuck skeletons. He doesn't need to sneak up because good people could die if this is like some farmer versus 10 zombies or whatever.
That's true.
So you step forward boldly to find a sort of an adult dragonborn with a sword in hand, fighting small sort of skeletal, almost crystalline frost spirits who are just like assailing him with like spiked arms, seem to be attacking him. He's got an overturned cart, a wounded, this sort of like a body, slowly like an orc at his feet who's just bleeding into the snow. And he's very valiantly trying to fight 5 of these frost spirits off. But you can tell that it's a losing endeavor largely because like you've seen magic versus sword before, and it usually goes bad for sword. So sure enough, it's a little bit of like the Boromir Last Stand business where it's just like, you know, he's wounded, he's still putting up a good fight, but it's like a guy with no shield and a sword versus 5 things throwing like frost spikes through him as he kind of continues to fend them off.
All right, I think Butthole just yell, "Frost thing's bad, go!" And he'll just charge into battle with his kind of Moonlight Bringer in hand.
Amazing. Roll for initiative.
This episode of Dumb Dumbs and Dragons features the voices of Ryan LaPlante at the Ryan LaPlante on Twitter, Tyler Hewitt at Tyler_Hewitt on Twitter, Laura Elizabeth at EL Hamstring on Twitter, and our DM Tom McGee at McGeeTD on Twitter. This episode's sound was edited and mixed by Laura Hamstra, and Dumb Dumbs and Dragons logo is by Decapitated Markers at Decapitated Marker on Twitter. Our theme songs are And Now for That Massive Coronary and Skipping Through the Orchestra Pit Part 1 by Peter Gresser, and our ad music is No Control and Chiefs by Jazzar, JAHZZAR, all available at freemusicarchive.org. When it comes to Dumb Dumbs and Dice, you can visit our website at dumbdumbdice.com. Our Twitter and Instagram are at dumbdumbdice, and on Facebook at facebook.com/dumbdumbdice. But most importantly, we've got merchandise at redbubble.com/people/dumbdumbdice, or you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dumbdumbdice. That's DUMBDUMBDICE. And tune in next week for more Dumb Dumbs and Dragons. Dumb Dumbs and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time: Christian Menicola, the Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, One True Artistry, Orion Birchfield, Lord Abradovic, Noel Lewis, Scott Garland, Anthony Griffin, Jordan Neesmith, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Cade Peters, Richard Cranium, Anna Zed, Eric Williams, Logan Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Cameron Ezel, Grandma Likes D&D, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumbdumbdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.